I'd like to call the HR meeting to order, please, promptly at 1:32. Roll call, please.
Kokendorfer.
Here.
Bowman.
Here.
Middleton.
Here.
Wypert.
Here.
Zach.
Here.
Hoffman.
Here. Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have before us the minutes of our October 31st meeting. Moved by Commissioner Wypert, supported by Commissioner Middleton. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same, motion carried. Approval of the agenda. Any other additions, corrections? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Middleton, supported by Commissioner Wypert. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Is there anybody here for public comment? Hearing none, we'll move on to the first item on the regular agenda. 52-1 District Court in Novi, delete 2 part-time, non-eligible community service office position and create 1 full-time eligible community service officer position.
I'll move that.
Moved by Commissioner Wypert, supported by Commissioner Kokendorfer. Welcome.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for having us on such short notice. I'm Alexander Black, Court Administrator at 52-1 District Court in Novi, and to my left.
Eric Knoll, Probation Supervisor.
We're here to present on, we have 2 part-time positions that have been in effect since 1986. These 2 part-time positions have supervised our community service program that we have specifically through our court. Over the last many years, you can see from our write-up that we have been able to provide services throughout our jurisdiction, but not only through our jurisdiction, we've had thousands and thousands of pounds of vegetables and produce that we've been able to disseminate to not only the jail in the past, but food banks, senior housing, various areas in the jurisdiction that didn't have money necessarily for food. Through that, we've been able to provide alternative for incarceration for many, many individuals. It provides our judges with a different approach to rehabilitation and reducing recidivism. The problem is we've had 18 different people in those 2 positions over the last 4 years, and it's been very difficult to maintain our community partnerships. It's hard for the people who are allowing us to have those offenders there to manage them when you have a different officer there every couple of months. So we're hoping with a full-time position that we'll be able to maintain some longevity and provide what we need to for the community.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? Commissioner Zach?
So, something I'm all for community service and creative ideas. But to me, we're going beyond the scope of the original intent. There are other nonprofits growing food, doing things. And I'm concerned about charging people $25 a day to do this. I understand that the competition for employees is very challenging. And when we started this program, maybe not so much. But I'm also looking and saying, investing $50,000, $60,000 in a person to oversee community service work, maybe it doesn't make sense in today's world. So I'm questioning this.
Well, currently we have approximately 1,200 people on probation, and 800 of those, approximately 800 at a time, are doing community service in lieu of jail time. And I understand what you're saying about having them pay to do their community service, but these hours are specifically in lieu of jail time. This isn't just community service as part of a sentence because we decide to give you community service. A lot of these people have either violated probation, and so instead of putting them in jail for that, we give them the community service. And so since we have had this program since 1986, Judge Batchick is the one that originally developed that. We've had the garden. That was one of our most successful things that we've ever had. We partnered with Kensington Metro Park. We have 3 acres out there. So I hear what you're saying, that your concern is the $25 a day. We haven't raised the rate since 1986. We charge $15 a day. So the average person gets about 5 days. So they would normally pay $75. Since 1986, it's been that way. What we're proposing is if we can raise this to get the additional 30,000 or whatever for the benefits, because that's really what the money goes towards for a full-time person.
So if they were not sentenced to community service, what would the judges do differently?
If they don't have that program, I can't say 100% that they would give them the jail, but that's what the order says. You either do the community service or you go to jail. So I'm not a judge, so I can't say that, 100% of the time they would go ahead and give them the jail. But that's the type of community service that this is.
And so the extra charge, is it basically revenue neutral then, or are we investing more money in this program?
No, it's revenue neutral. So we asked for that increase just to cover what it would cost for the benefits for that person.
And then do we have any collection problems around this program? Because I know some of our fines and some of our district courts, we've had trouble. And
Yeah,
so-
our court, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
No.
We actually were audited by the state at the beginning of the year. Our collection program was cited as exceptional. We not only follow the first 7 requirements, the components, we exceeded and we go to the full 9 components that are actually suggested, not required. And what we do is we've actually designated a criminal clerk to sit down with people, actually look over their tax returns with them to make sure that we're giving them affordable payment plans. We have never, in my 24 years there that I know of, we've never incarcerated somebody who truly was indigent or could not pay. We don't do that. And the other thing we pride ourselves on in the 52nd District Courts as a whole, when we measure ourselves against other district courts and their fee schedules and fines, we are on the lower end for sure.
Well, I don't think of that personally. You can be on the lower end because you're supported by county government, and the other district courts are supported by their municipalities. So I can't compare that. My people that I represent are double taxed. They're paying for their local municipal as well as the county-run district courts. So.
Sure, but my point is that we still, even though we could say, okay, well, this is what all the other district courts charge. We don't do that because of that. Like you said, because of that, we don't exceed that.
Thank you.
Mr. Wyper?
You covered the whole district, but.
Mr.
How long
Bowman?
it started, I was gonna ask about, it started a long time ago.
Right.
And they had committed full-time, or full volunteers that really committed themselves.
Right.
And I know over time, those same type of volunteers haven't stuck with it.
Right, that's been the problem.
Yeah.
And thank you for, we're not asking for a new program. We're saying this is an existing program. We don't have any intention of not doing the program either way, but we're asking to be able to provide more for our community partners.
Seems like it's gonna be more stability.
Correct.
Commissioner Bowman, do you have a question?
So my question is in reference to the rate increase. We noted that there's essentially a $10 rate increase, and that this is potentially a cost neutral role position. But there's a 30K relative to the benefits for the associate. So is that essentially what the request is for, the
Right.
10,000 to cover the
To cover the benefits, right.
You all set, Commissioner Bowman?
Also.
I have a question. What does it cost per day to house somebody in jail?
Oh, well,
It depends, I mean, it's like around 100 and, last time I talked, 25 hours a day, roughly.
thank you.
That's for the entire system. It depends on where you're housed.
Okay, and I do agree that community service is a great idea. And I'm sure that a person would jump at community service versus being locked up.
Sure. I think in my whole career as a probation officer, one person asked me to do the jail time instead of the.
The physical labor.
Yes, they did. Yeah.
Okay. Does anybody have any other questions? Roll call, please.
Kokendorfer,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yeah.
Middleton,
Yes.
Wyper,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
Hoffman.
Yes. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
The next item, Central Services Department Aviation and Transportation Division position creation. Moved by Commissioner Middleton, supported by Commissioner Wypert. Thank you. Hi.
Good afternoon,
Yeah.
Cheryl Bush, Airport Manager. I'm here to present a position creation for our location at Oakland Southwest Airport. We've had for the past 6 years a management contract in place that is due to expire December 31st. And rather than outsourcing, we are proposing to create a full-time position to be able to get better utilization and have a little more control and flexibility over the position of this airport. The cost of the new position will be offset by the expiration of the contract. About 98% of it will be covered by the elimination of that contract expense, and then the difference will be paid by the airport fund.
Anybody have any questions? I have a question. This company you have to do it now, what do they actually do? Because it sounds like this new position, maybe do some light maintenance, but inspections and that type of thing,
Yes, the position is to essentially have someone based at the airport that can respond to emergencies. They perform taxiway and runway inspections on an hourly basis to maintain security and safety of the airport conditions. They're a liaison to the tenants that are based there. They do some light maintenance and landscaping, but they're the voice of Oakland County to represent the airport Monday through Friday.
Okay, when you had a contract with these people, was somebody at the airport all the time? From
Yes.
the, pardon?
Yes.
And so it was one person?
They had a flight school out there, and so they performed dual purpose. And now they've closed their flight school, and so their staff has been reduced. And their costs were proposing to go upward as well.
Then it would cost more than having an employee do it?
Yes.
Mr. Wyper?
This came through P&B yesterday, went through unanimous, and Dave Vanderveen came through. Right now, at the other two airports, they have it the way they're asking. They have full-time staff there, and this is just gonna mirror that. So it's, all three airports will be in a line doing it the same way.
Okay.
Yeah.
And which airport is this again?
This is
Southwest.
Oakland Southwest.
Okay.
To
Yeah,
be
out by-
clear, Oakland Troy is 6 part-time people,
Okay,
but it's Oakland County staff. This would be one full-time
Full-time.
person because we have the right person that has been performing this function for the last 5 years, and he will come on board with us. So it's a very smooth transition.
okay. Commissioner Zach?
So this position's pretty close to revenue neutral then?
It's about $1,000 is the difference.
Okay, and then we can.
61,000 and change versus 62,000 in cost.
Okay, and so that difference comes through fees or whatever else?
Through the airport fund.
Okay. thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Commissioner Middleton.
Is that airport open 24/7?
Yes.
And you have one person that's gonna cover this? They won't cover it every hour and things now, the way
You'll
they're.
be on call
Okay,
for those other hours, and then it'll also be supported by the staff that we have at Oakland County International.
oh, okay.
Okay, thank you. Roll call, please.
Bowman,
Yes.
Middleton,
Yes.
Wyper.
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
Kokendorfer.
Yes.
Hoffman.
Yes. Motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number 3, County Executive Department create a new position to support the Great Lakes Water Authority activities.
I'll move it.
Moved by Commissioner Middleton, supported by Commissioner Kokendorfer.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. We're here to ask your approval to establish a new Accountant 4 position to assist with the infrastructure analysis that's required under the Great Lakes Water Authority. You may recall that in October of 2014, this board adopted the Articles of Incorporation under Public Act 233 that created the Great Lakes Water Authority. Since that time, in December at the first organizational meeting, Mr. Dado was appointed by the county executive to be Oakland County's representative, and he was elected by the other members to be chair. He was chair for the first 2 years, and now Mr. Freeman Hendricks is currently the chair. The GLEWA is about an $800 million a year operation in terms of revenue, and it suffers from probably 50 years of deferred maintenance, and it's a substantial operation that serves about 40% of Michigan's population. The Oakland County impact, just so you know, is we have some 847,000 Oakland County residents that are serviced by it in 35 communities, primarily M59 south and primarily east of Haggerty Road. The workload has become tremendous, more so than it was before. We believe it's past time to institutionalize the knowledge that Mr. Dado has had over the last, gained over the last 5 years. Understanding this is a 40-year lease, and it will survive all of us here in this room in terms of the business operations. There's just an incredible amount of detail. Mr. Dado, when he's here earlier in the week, talked about spending 50% of his time. You should probably understand that 50% of Bob Dado's time is about 80% of the rest of our time, because he works nights and weekends, and that's no joke. When we got together in a lawsuit, we had to get discovery ready last May, I believe it was, and we got 17,000 emails that he's had to handle since the inception, and over 5,000 files. And some of these files are 11, 12, 1,300 pages of bankruptcy orders and what have you. So it's a lot of work, and it's primarily his function. And it's time for us to put in place a mechanism going forward to take care of the need. You should understand, in terms of day-to-day operation, there's many problems, as we all knew there would be as we bring this up off the ground. There's a $1.7 billion capital improvement program in place that's supposed to take place over the next 6 years. The reality is they can't get the contracts out, can't do the procurement fast enough, so they're only running about $140 million a year on it, which sounds like a lot of money, but what that means is they fall further and further behind. We have one vote on the board. We do have trouble getting information in a timely fashion. Mr. Dado's down there, for instance, today, and he received half the information that's on the agenda for today last night after 6 o'clock, which is the usual mechanism. So because he's a 45-year overnight success, he can read things and spot issues that most of us wouldn't. Literally, the attempted cost shifts onto the suburban customers it totals millions of dollars, and frankly, every month. So we need to do a better job to represent our citizens in terms of making sure that the appropriate costs are being charged to the appropriate systems. And to do that, we need to build up the resources. I will tell you that I'm sure this board going forward will hear more from us about the infrastructure and the monitoring, because I think the board's going to need to be more involved globally to understand the demands that are going to be placed on the ratepayers throughout the county, not only for GLEWA, but the Evergreen Farmington's sitting on about $140 million or so of consent orders, administrative consent orders they're going to have to be addressing in the next near term. That's the 15 communities that basically run down the Rouge River watershed. George W. Kuhn has less total dollars amounts, but still measures in tens of millions of what they're going to have to do. And this is all before the 2023 re-permitting process that will take place, that will be, we think, substantial. One of the things you need to know is that we are members of OMID, which is the Oklahoma-Macomb Interceptor. The Oklahoma-Macomb Interceptor is an inter-county drainage district that is both Oakland and Macomb. And there's about 800,000 people on that. And in the GLEWA analysis of criticality, they call it, criticality being the probability of failure together with the consequences of failure, they're going to assign it a rank. OMID comes out just about #1 of all the things in the system. And the initial pass from the GLEWA staff, which are basically the old DWSD staff, is they would get right on that starting in 2023 or 2024. It's got 8 pumps, but only 2 work. And if you think the failures we saw when Macomb had a collapse a year or so ago, it's nothing compared to what that is. So we have 2 types of issues that arise out of there. There's engineering issues, which we have a great relationship with the Water Resources Commissioner. Commissioner Nash's folks do a good job in the engineering and trying to keep us informed. Bob basically does the business issues with them together, but we need to broaden it out, and so this is the first step as an accountant for, and to see how that works.
Thank you. Commissioner Kokendorfer?
So I'm on general government. I heard Mr. Dano speak to this. I was just floored when I heard that he was spending at least 50% of his time on this. In fact, he said, and sometimes it's more, it's 70% or more. And I just see this as investment when you compare the cost of this position to the amount of savings or additional expenses that our taxpayers could be facing. So I support it.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Zach?
Are we the only county that devotes all of this
We will be,
accounting time?
well, we will be the first county that does it as a GLEWA board support. Some of the counties, let me be bold and tell you, don't really feel the need to review the materials before they attend the meetings. It's only $1 billion operation. And there's an institutional problem, in my opinion, for what we've observed. We've been in litigation and we've been in mediation and what have you. There's a definite bias. But our constant battle is what I'll call the sandbagging and the last minute dropping of information. And this is truly a nonpartisan issue as opposed to bipartisan, because the communities that are primarily affected in Oakland County are southeast part of the county and a little bit in the middle. But they all pay rates, and the importance of keeping ahead of this now is, for instance, the city of Detroit right now is about $57 million behind paying their sewage fees. They're a customer of GLEWA, and that's grown at a rate of about $3 or $4 million a month. And there is no institutional pressure on the part of GLEWA staff, who all came from the city, as the DWSD, to figure out a means to bring them up to date, let's say. And one of the things that we strive to avoid is a situation where at some point somebody's going to say, let's not pay the $50 million a year lease fee because they owe more than that. If you understood our concept when we started, Bob and I did the negotiations in the bankruptcy in 13 and 14. The idea of the lease payment really was to create a pool of money for the infrastructure in Detroit. So they didn't have money, they have critical systems, they needed it. And so you can, on paper it might look good to take that money, but the reality is you'll hurt yourself because the system, the pipes need to work. And the water needs to flow through, the sewage needs to flow through, and most of them run through the city at parts. So you can't be blind to the fact of the fiscal need of the residents and what have you. So everything's a huge balance. But there is so much money involved for so long that we think the county is going to be well served to beef this up, especially as we start weighing costs and rate charges to folks that won't even just be for GLEWA, as I said, but the Evergreen Farmington permits, the George Kuhn Drain, the Acacia Parks, the CSOs, all those things that we used to talk about more often here, but haven't really been on the front page for a while. They're all coming back, and all the permitting obligations and renewals are coming up in the next 4 or 5 years. I don't think that anybody else is in a position. The county is the county, being the GLEWA representative needs to be looking at the business issues as the engineers at the Water Resources, who are customers of GLEWA, need to be concentrating on the engineering.
Do we have someone internally that we're going to train, or are you recruiting? How, if we approve this, how's this going to go forward?
I'll just say Mr. Gatto's position at this point is that he would like to find somebody internally to put up, but it depends on what their skill set is, because you're going to look for somebody that hopefully has a bit of cost accounting experience and a little bit of forensic accounting experience. We're not sure that we have that, because that just haven't been duties that they needed to do. So we may have to open it to the outside. And what we'll find out when we open it outside is really whether or not, for the salary relied on HR's evaluation, but if we're really going to be able to attract the type of candidate we need for the money that's offered, we'll find out. But we prefer usually to promote from the inside if we can, but I'm here to tell you that we don't have anybody in mind right now.
So finally, I know we have this lawsuit going on. Even once we settle that, there's still going to be continuous review and accounting needs. I don't see it going away.
Oh, no, this is primarily not related to any lawsuit. This is primarily related to the ongoing business operations. It's almost $1 billion a year flowing through there. Frankly, decades of deferred maintenance that you're gonna have to stretch out. And there are things that it's all insider baseball. When we signed the lease, you had to make a couple assumptions to start. For instance, one of the assumptions they made was main that's 24 inches or larger generally serves suburban customers, so those costs would be allocated. And then we'd study the 3,500 miles of pipes to see what's really there. So for about 2 years now, we've been studying the pipes, and they discovered there are a number of 24-inch mains that only serve the city. And so those charges are more properly allocated to the city. Surprisingly enough, the city doesn't want to make any adjustments in that. And so we anticipated there'd be these types of business issues, and so there's an arbitration process. And so to figure out what the cost is where isn't labor intensive. You should understand, I'm sure you've heard before, the city's not metered. And a lot of this is guesstimates. And so they started to meter up, the big pipes they have you, but we're still left with the idea that the city needs, for instance, about 62 million gallons a day of water. Excuse me. But they're pumping over 100 million gallons into the city to get to that 62 to get into the residents. So what it means, obviously, is there's leakage and breakage. And so as they go through between water and sewer, I think it's like 7,500 pipes. As they get this out, making everyone accountable for crossing it really there is going to be a full-time job. And I'll make no bones about it. My recommendation ultimately is going to be to grow this because it's so much money, and for such a long time period, we have to be there.
I have to say, in my 16 years as commissioner, this is the hardest vote to take, because it is so important. Not an easy system, not an easy deal, and I see this as protective and defensive for our residents. And I hate to take on more costs, but I also listen to my constituents talk about their water bills. And this is really important. So,
Anybody? Thank you, Commissioner Zach. Anything else? Commissioner Bowman?
I'm more so trying to quantify what is not essentially being mentioned in terms of needs. Clearly, Mr. Dadhouse was a lion's share of time relative to Blue One, and we are ultimately only asking for an accountant to support him in many ways. And so I'm in some ways trying to forecast beyond what the immediate request and or need is to prepare for what might come thereafter. Obviously, this request is only to approve for the accounting role, but can you potentially identify additional support roles that might be needed in the future?
Well, I'm going to start out with saying that the business issues are the ones that we are focused on at this point. Commissioner Nash lost a couple of key people down to Gleewa because they pay a whole lot better than the county, and it's a much bigger system in terms of scope of responsibility. Everything I've talked about in terms of money is pre-lead and copper, pre-PFAS that's coming up. And so the area is going to be busy. So, excuse me, I think there's a strong possibility that the WRC will be looking at it. And that's, most of the WRC expenses are spread across ratepayers and specific units directly benefiting. This, as you'll notice, is coming out of county general fund because it's on the Gleewa side for the county as the county. I think that you're going to need, given the volume of work, we're going to need a couple more ultimately, which is why we put $300,000 in the budget to make sure that there was going to be funding for that. We originally put it in the contracted services stuff for the county executive administration, so we'd have a pot of money to draw over into the salaries from. Bob wants to go slow, which is his nature, to find out what we have out there, and if it's, the reality is that we have to pay significantly more than we've currently identified to get the talent and experience we need, we want to be able to do that. But I can certainly see, depending ultimately, frankly, on what the board wants to do in terms of oversight for infrastructure, I can see a need for a unit that will look at, you know, not just the Gleeville water and sewer. Remember, we have more lives in Oakland County on well and septic than any other county in the state. And those well and septic start Southfield line and come north. And as the groundwater, when I found out anyway, early last year, the state was already monitoring 11,000 PFAS sites. And this hadn't told anybody. We didn't know they were doing the vapor intrusion analysis in Franklin until they called us up and told us they want us to evict the place because of the readings. They hadn't told us about that. So there's a lot out there on infrastructure, water, and sewer. And of course, like anything else, this is that health and safety, but that water and sewer infrastructure is central to our development, our economic development, our safety and quality of life. So I think it's going to grow. To be long-winded about it, I guess.
Anything else? Roll call, please.
Middleton,
Yes.
Wyper,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
Hockendorfer,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Hoffman.
Yes. Motion carried.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Jerry. The next item, Department of Health and Human Services, Health Division, Michigan Fitness Foundation, SNAP Ed grant acceptance. Hello?
Hello, Leanne Stafford, Health Officer for the Oakland County Health Division. So the SNAP Ed grant that we are bringing to you is actually for $25,000. It is a reduction of $25,000 from last year, so we need to delete one of our special revenue part-time health educators because the Michigan Fitness Foundation has decided to only focus on one single city, which is Pontiac, which we have been focusing on for a few years now. So the work and the work plan that's required is only necessary for one staff. So.
Any questions? Roll call, please.
Wyper,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
Hockendorfer,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Middleton,
Yes.
Hoffman.
Yes. Motion carried. Thank you very much. The next item, Sheriff's Office establishing of standard law enforcement services contract rates and contract approval January 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2021. Moved by Commissioner Wyper. Ordered by Commissioner Kokendorfer.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
This will establish a rate for the next 3 years for the communities that contract with the Sheriff's Office for police services. The rate was established in conjunction with the County Executive's Office, and we were able to, as you know, we've settled a 3-year contract with the deputies, so generally we establish the rates based on how the contracts go, and we're asking for your permission today to establish these rates.
Any questions? Mr. Wyper?
How is it going up? I mean, is it just?
The first year, yeah, I'm sorry, it's on average, because each community is going to be a little bit different depending upon what they contract, whether it's a captain, lieutenant, sergeants, deputies. So the first year is an average of only 0.49%, which they're all very happy about. We've been able to, through the county executive, bring our fringe benefit rates down tremendously. So it's one of the reasons, even though the deputies are getting a wage increase of 2, 2, and 2, because of the fringe benefit rate going down. The next year, 2.92%, and the third year, 2.92%. And again, each community they'll be somewhere near that, depending upon the type of contract that they have.
Any other questions? You can't negotiate anything different with the separate communities. This is the set rate and everybody's paying the same.
It's always been that way. Everybody pays the same.
Which is good.
Right, but now we work in conjunction with them in terms of staffing levels, amount of supervision, things like that. Every substation now, when I hired in 1977, a long time ago, we had one sergeant that supervised everybody out on the road patrol. Now we have, at every substation, 2 substations have captains. Every other substation has a lieutenant. The 2 smallest substations, which are Springfield and Addison have sergeants that supervise those work locations.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Zach,
Yes.
Kokendorfer,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Middleton,
Yes.
Wypert.
Yes.
Hoffman.
Yes. Next item, Sheriff's Office Standard Law Enforcement Agreement with the Charter Township of Independence, January 1st, 2019 to December 31st, 2021. Moved by Commissioner Middleton, supported by Commissioner Bowman.
After the rates being established or proposed, Independence Township has decided they want to add one more deputy to their contingent. Will bring them a total of 32 command and deputies total.
Any questions? Commissioner Wypert?
And no issues with rate? I mean, they jumped right, they're
The
jumping right.
communities are very happy. We haven't had one complaint, let's put it that way.
That's good. Roll call, please.
Kokendorfer,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Middleton,
Yes.
Wypert,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
Hoffman.
Yes. Motion carried. Next item, Sheriff's Office Standard Law Enforcement Service Agreement with the Charter Township of Brandon, January 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2021. Moved by Commissioner Middleton, supported by Commissioner Kokendorfer.
It's basically adding a sergeant. Well, there already is a sergeant. There's a lieutenant and a sergeant now. The sergeant acts as both a supervisor and a detective. This will allow Brandon Township to have the lieutenant and the sergeant doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is supervision. By adding the patrol investigator, he'll take over the duties as the detective that the sergeant currently performs two functions. And so Brandon will be adding one patrol investigator.
Okay, questions? Mr. Wypert?
And this is their request, right?
Oh, yes,
It's not your
absolutely.
suggestion.
Well, we all, they always ask us, we all give them suggestions, and we think this is a great idea. We've been kind of pushing all the substations to get up to the proper amount of supervision and the proper amount of detectives. So we work in conjunction with the local communities, but yes, this is Brandon's request.
Thank you.
Welcome, Commissioner Middleton.
Yeah, are we back to where we were before the big layoffs?
We're,
Yeah.
just about every community now is back to where they were. Some actually are maybe even a little higher, like Commerce and Independence. Rochester Hills just came back up to the 60 level that they had eliminated 3
Yeah.
positions. They're back up to 60. Pontiac, we started out with 74, we're up to 79 now. Don't forget, Pontiac used to do it with 165 officers, so. But generally, I think just about everybody, even, now Brandon is coming back to where they were
Yeah.
before the layoffs.
So they're adding, but we're just trying to recover. is
It's
basically-
taken 10 years.
Yeah, so,
Wow.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Bowman,
Yes.
Middleton,
Yes.
Wypert,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
Kokendorfer,
Yes.
Hoffman.
Yes. Motion carried. The next
you.
item. Thank you. Human Resources Department Agreement with Central Michigan University for a tuition discount. It's amazing my
I'll
phone
move
even
it.
works.
I'll move it.
Moved by Commissioner Wypert, supported by Commissioner Zach.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
My name is Melva Allen from HR Training and Development, and what you have before you is an agreement to enter into a memorandum of understanding with Central Michigan University. They approached us several months ago about an incentive program that they're extending to about 10 organizations, and this would offer Oakland County employees, their spouses, and dependents a 15% discount on tuition for some of their programs that's offered online and at their satellite campuses only. We think this would be a great benefit to Oakland County employees to assist in their career development and also allow them to take advantage of the tuition reimbursement program that we currently already have. In part of this agreement, Central Michigan would also market this on their website. We would provide opportunities for them to market at the county along with other tuition incentives that we have been approached with from other schools. It's important to know that this would not cost us any money or staff time. The only thing that we would have to do is verify employment for employees, and Central Michigan would verify dependents. So we think this is a great program to offer employees.
Thank you. Commissioner Wypert?
Malcolm, I don't think we've met.
No.
Welcome, and who do
Thank
you have
you.
with you?
I'm sorry, this is
I'm Fred Kaiser, Associate Director, here, based here locally, and my boss, Marcus Matthews from the main campus.
Hey, welcome. Thanks, guys. You saw three fresh faces here. So this is, no cost to the county whatsoever, and there any other, just, this is a new program,
If I can add, we've seen tuition reimbursement on a downswing rather than an upswing, so we think this will help incent employees to, either further their education or, go back to school for someone that's maybe stopped. So we're hopefully to see tuition reimbursement kind of go on an upswing.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Middleton,
Yes.
Wyper,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
Kokendorfer,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Hoffman.
Yes. Motion carried.
Good.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Bowman.
This is the first I've heard of this type of incentive or opportunity. Do we have this relationship with any other institutions, schools within the area?
I know Melva actually has a list of some schools that have approached us. We know that the University of Michigan Dearborn offers a discount. I think that's primarily in the area of law enforcement, criminal justice. So there are some institutions that do it, and we just don't know that they do it, and they're starting to come forward. So we're gathering that information, compiling a list for our employees that they're able to tap into that.
In this instance, Central Michigan approached.
Central approached us, yes.
Commissioner
Are
Wyper?
are you doing it with any other municipalities or government entities or hospitals or?
We have been given permission to go up to 10 organizations. We have an agreement right now in place with the U.S. Office of Personnel Management at the federal level. We have an agreement also with the state of Michigan, municipality level. We also have agreements with Macomb County, Michigan Municipal League, so therefore we can extend the benefit to city employees that are members of the Michigan Municipal League and the like. So.
Great. What's do we have any stats? Any stats from any of those other organizations? How many people are taking advantage of it? Or
I would say
is it
probably at the federal level, it's probably about 300 so far. These are relatively new for us. We just began our first agreement back in 2015, and so we've been growing it slowly and carefully, as you can well imagine. Partners with whom we want to engage with, we're very selective on those. I would say it's in the dozens at the county level right now, at most, or at city level. State government has, we've seen significant uptake in the last year or so with them as well. So we anticipate it will grow slowly. We think it's directly proportionate, the growth is directly proportionate to the awareness that the program exists, and obviously the degree that the entities can support it with tuition assistance.
I was gonna follow up with that. What is HR gonna do in conjunction with college to market it?
So we will continue to market tuition reimbursement to make sure employees really understand how it is utilized, but also making it known what colleges offer the discount. So some people may have already established where they're going to school, so making sure they understand the process of tuition reimbursement. And those that are just thinking about going to school, hopefully this will help push them in that direction, and they'll select one of the universities.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item is Human Resources Department, exception to Merit Rule 2.2, extension. Motion by Commissioner Kokendorfer. Any support? Commissioner Middleton?
Good
Thank you.
afternoon. If you recall, in 2016, the HR department had come to the HR committee to request permission to enter into an agreement with Management and Advisory Group to conduct a classification and compensation study on all non-represented classifications within Oakland County. At this time last year, we were going through the JAQ process, collecting the job analysis questionnaires from employees to detail their job duties. And we had requested in January of last year to continue an extension of suspending the provisions of Merit Rule 2.2, which would suspend salary grade review requests during this process. We're reaching a point now where we're fine-tuning information. We're still gathering information on classifications that we may not have received a JQ for, or information was not clear. And because we're going into 2019, we're requesting an extension of that suspension of salary grade review requests until December 31st, 2019.
Commissioner Zach?
So when do we hope to have results from the compensation study?
By the end of the second quarter of calendar year 2019, so by June.
And so we're just asking for an extension out of safety
Yes.
and to allow us time to process
To
the
implement
results.
and, yes.
Okay, because I don't want to give you till the end of the year. You know, the people are anxiously awaiting
Yes.
the compensation study, so you'll take action based on board approval after that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
thank
when we
you.
bring the proposal to the board for approval, we will actually have a set implementation date in that approval.
Okay, thank
But
you.
it should be by the second quarter of
Yes.
2019, the
Yes.
end of it. Commissioner Wiper?
That was my same,
No.
getting around the county, people are asking,
Yeah.
when's it coming? Did it turn out to be more overwhelming than you thought, or?
When the county initially implemented the current salary administration plan, it took over 3 years to implement. And this, again, we have more classifications at this point now. So, yeah, gathering that information and condensing it as much as possible into a new plan. We've started with 825 classifications at last count. With MAG, we're down to 580 classifications.
And just to add to that, I mean, it's a lot of information and follow-up to make sure that where there were classifications, where there were multiple people in that classification, you may have gotten several different versions of an answer. So it's making sure that we were able to go through and get consistent information. So perhaps they didn't work in the same department, but the same classification is used, just making sure we have good, consistent information. That's been very time-consuming, and we've got our arms around that right now.
And like Commissioner Zach said, this is the safety. Hopefully.
Correct.
Yes.
Hopefully it's only half a year
Yes,
or less.
hopefully less.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Wipert?
Yes.
Zach?
Yes.
Kokendorfer?
Yes.
Bowman?
Yes.
Middleton?
Yes.
Hoffman?
Yes. Motion carried. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. The next item, Retirement and Deferred Compensation Board, amending the retirement plan documents and stating the composition and qualifications of the Oakland County Retirement and Deferred Compensation Board.
Hi, my name is Sylvia Frank. I think,
Oh, moved by Commissioner Wipert, supported by Commissioner Bowman. Go ahead.
sorry about that.
That's all right.
My name is Sylvia Frank, and I'm the retirement administrator. I've been here 1 year and 3 months. This resolution would amend the 3 retirement plans we have, the 401A, the 457B, and defined benefit. And it would remove the definition of retirement composition from the plan documents, and it would state it through this resolution. I think a very important point is the resolution does not change the composition at all. And I'm here to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions? Commissioner
So
Wiper?
nothing's changing, it's just changing where the body is referred to.
That is correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Commissioner Middleton?
Yeah, I sit on the retirement board, and the 3 documents had the composition of the retirement board, and that's really not the responsibility of the retirement board. That's the responsibility of the board. So it's automatically, when it comes to it, that composition is already established. And the way it read was that maybe the retirement board could mess with that, and that's not right. And one document, it kind of hinted that way. The other documents was different. So by taking that out and leaving it with the Board of Commissioners, all three of those documents read the same now. So, and Chris is also on the board. He can. Okay.
Stated better than I.
Thank you. Any other questions?
You agree with that?
I am in agreement. Absolutely.
We were in
Thank you.
trouble if not. Yeah.
All right, roll call, please. Thank you.
Zach,
Yes.
Kokendorfer,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Middleton,
Yes.
Wyper,
Yes.
Hoffman,
Yes. Motion carried. The last item, Human Resource Department Extension of Merit System Eligibility List. Moved by Commissioner Kokendorfer, supported by Commissioner Middleton.
Certified eligible lists are in effect for 6 months. The HR committee may approve to extend a list for another 6 months. We're recommending to the HR committee for its review and approval to extend the following 32 eligible lists for another 6 months.
Does anybody have any questions on that? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Kokendorfer,
Yes.
Bowman,
No.
Middleton,
Yes.
Wyper,
Yes.
Zach,
Yes.
Hoffman.
Yes, motion carried. Thank you. We have to receive and file our communications. Moved by
I'll move-
Commissioner
I'll move,
Wyper,
but I have a question.
supported by Commissioner Middleton.
So I have a question.
Oh, you have a question?
Yeah.
No, I'm moving it, but.
Okay, go ahead.
On the no incentives used, I mean, I see that's one of the memos.
Yes. Yeah.
We've authorized that incentive employment that came to us for a couple times to use it.
And we did not use it, is that correct?
Right.
Yes.
For 2018, it hasn't been.
So you gave us the approval to use it at our discretion,
Yeah.
we just didn't have to use it.
Okay. And I thought one time wasn't there an extra supplemental too on the?
No, we thought, you guys had, we cleared it up that instead of having to come back and ask for approval to use it, you released it that we could use it at our discretion on certain positions, and we didn't end up using it this year.
Okay, I thought there was a couple times that you thought you were gonna need it. and-
We thought.
Yeah, medical
Yeah.
examiner was that.
And it
that was a
ended up
typo.
not being used.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. All those,
Thank you.
did we all vote?
Yes.
We already
Just
did?
No, just voice vote.
Yeah, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carried. Any other business today? Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.